This interview was recorded in 2001 during the release of Band of Brothers. Although Eugene "Doc" Roe appeared in every episode of the miniseries, he was only mentioned briefly in Stephen Ambrose's original book. In fact, the only item in Richard Winter's collection relating to Roe is a single photograph, the one shown on screen. Roe died in 1998 before the series was produced, so the writers never had the opportunity to hear his first-hand account of the war. While he undoubtedly earned his place in the story of Easy Company, much of his portrayal was created for television. Some of the details that became central to his character simply were not true. Roe was not half Cajun, despite this being a key element of the Bastogne episode, and his grandmother was not a traiteur. The relationship depicted between Roe and Belgian nurse Renée Lemaire was also almost certainly fictional, and there is little evidence the two ever met. There were other historical inaccuracies as well. Roe was not part of Richard Winters's stick on D-Day, nor was he the medic who treated Winter's leg wound at Carentan. Even so, the series succeeded in capturing what those who knew him remembered best: his kindness, humility, and unwavering devotion to the men of Easy Company. Unlike some portrayals, Roe's character was shown with dignity and respect, earning admiration from viewers around the world. His daughter, Maxine Turcotte, painted an even richer picture of the man behind the uniform. Despite the nickname Doc, Eugene Roe was never actually a doctor, yet he spent the war treating wounded soldiers under some of the harshest conditions imaginable, and many of those men never forgot it. According to Turcotte, almost every Easy Company veteran she met shared the same message: "Your dad saved my life." It was something she heard countless times. Roe rarely spoke at length about the war. Instead, memories surfaced in brief fragments over the years. One story that stayed with his daughter involved a soldier who had suffered a devastating head wound. Roe had to hold part of the man's skull together while waiting for additional medical help, a traumatic memory that never appeared in the miniseries but remained vivid within the family. Born and raised near Morgan City, Louisiana, Roe grew up in Bayou Chene with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Although the series described him as half Cajun, his daughter explained that this wasn't accurate. Ironically, some of his ancestry traced back to German roots, though his grandmother's family, the Verrets, were part of the French heritage that shaped southern Louisiana. No one knows exactly why Roe was selected as a combat medic. He had no formal medical background and received only limited training before entering combat. Despite that, he proved remarkably capable. Working quietly and without fanfare, he cared for wounded men in situations that tested even the most experienced soldiers. Turcotte noted that her father had only a 4th-grade education and never considered himself particularly skilled with words. He preferred to listen rather than speak, and often let others tell the stories. Perhaps that is one reason his name appears only occasionally in Ambrose's book. Yet the men who served beside him remembered him well. Lieutenant Jack Foley described Roe as someone who always seemed to appear exactly when he was needed, often leaving others wondering how he had managed to reach them under fire. Foley believed Roe deserved a Silver Star for his actions during one particularly brutal engagement, and later expressed frustration that the recommendation never resulted in an award. In his view, few men had earned such recognition more than Easy Company's medic. One of the memories Roe did share involved the winter at Bastogne. According to his daughter, he often spoke about frostbite and the suffering caused by the freezing conditions. He carried morphine for wounded soldiers and sometimes recovered unused ampules from fallen men so they could help save others still alive. The television series also introduced a romantic subplot involving a French nurse. Turcotte said that story was entirely fictional. In reality, Roe was already married. During a wartime furlough to England, he had married his fiancée, Vera. Their relationship began with a small misunderstanding after Vera initially gave him a false name, Maxine. Later, when Roe arrived looking for her, confusion followed until the truth emerged. The name eventually became a family one, given to their first daughter. One of the memories Roe did share involved the winter at Bastogne. According to his daughter, he often spoke about frostbite and the suffering caused by the freezing conditions. He carried morphine for wounded soldiers and sometimes recovered unused ampules from fallen men so they could help save others still alive. The television series also introduced a romantic subplot involving a French nurse. Turcotte said that story was entirely fictional. In reality, Roe was already married. During a wartime furlough to England, he had married his fiancée, Vera. Their relationship began with a small misunderstanding after Vera initially gave him a false name, Maxine. Later, when Roe arrived looking for her, confusion followed until the truth emerged. The name eventually became a family one, given to their first daughter. Roe loved attending easy company gatherings. Over the years, he became especially close with many of the men he had served beside. Richard Winters called frequently, as did Bill Guarnier and Walter Gordon. The bonds forged during the war only seemed to strengthen with time. After 27 years of marriage, Eugene and Vera divorced. Roe later remarried, spending nearly 25 years with his second wife Myrtle before his death in 1998. Shortly before he passed away, his daughters traveled to Bastogne with their husbands. Standing atop the memorial there left them speechless. When they returned home, they showed Roe photographs and presented him with a pair of eagle's wings they had purchased during the trip. Looking through the images, he immediately recognized landmarks, roads, and the church. The memories remained vivid more than 50 years later. Sadly, Roe never lived to see Band of Brothers. He knew Ambrose's book was being adapted, but he never learned that one of the episodes would effectively become a tribute to him. His nephew, William Roe, later reflected on the significance of that recognition. To him, Eugene's story represented something uniquely American. A man who grew up poor and unassuming becoming someone remembered by figures like Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. More importantly, it demonstrated that heroism is not always found in grand gestures. Sometimes it is found in people who simply do their duty, quietly and consistently, under extraordinary circumstances. When Band of Brothers premiered in France, members of both of Roe's families attended. His children, Myrtle, and her grandson met many of the actors, along with Tom Hanks himself. Stephen Ambrose signed Maxine Turcotte's copy of Band of Brothers with a simple dedication, "To the daughter of a brave man." For Turcotte, the experience helped her family understand aspects of the war they had never fully grasped. They knew about the snow, the hunger, and the cold, but the series revealed the true brutality of combat. Looking back, she came to appreciate that her father had been a hero, even if he would never have described himself that way. In her eyes, all of those men were heroes, carrying scars and memories that remained hidden from everyone except themselves. When she remembered her father, however, it was not the war that came to mind first. She remembered his smile. She remembered a quiet man who preferred to stand back rather than seek attention. He could be lively in a crowd when the moment called for it, but most of the time he simply got on with the job in front of him. As she reflected on his life, she knew he had been only a small part of something much larger. But to the men whose lives he saved, he meant everything. How do you feel about Eugene Roe's portrayal in Band of Brothers? Do you think they strayed too far from his actual story, or was the poetic license justified? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe.